Today I'll be talking to you about my interactive journal. This is definitely dressed down than my thumbnail picture, but this is what I'm working with right now. It's a lot easier to show you what's going on inside if I took a lot of things off from the outside. So first, here on the inside cover is my table of contents, and it did not all fit on one page, so I went ahead and started on the back right here. So right here on the inside cover, you can find everything. The first couple pages, it just talks about what a teaching strategy is, why use an interactive notebook, and what is involved in an interactive notebook. Also with a list of my first year supplies right here. And I came up with 31 teaching strategies. They all range, so the different categories I came up for each one is engaging teaching strategies, lesson planning, high expectations, delivery, class culture, behavior, and character are the themes for each little section. So a couple of my favorite I'll pull out. I've tabbed them here so I can talk about them with you. So another one of my favorites, well, my first favorite is wait time. That's one of the biggest things we would talk about in class and that our teacher would practice with us. It's just giving time to students so they can sit and think. It's not a punishment. It's not something that should be used as a punishment, but rather for a time that students can think. A lot of students need that time. They don't just jump on the ball and answer the question. They need some time to think. Another one of my favorites after some research was cold calls. And they're often used in the classroom where you just call on a random student, someone particularly who probably hasn't participated a lot in class or doesn't have their hand raised. It just gives every student an opportunity to participate in the class, and it also keeps all the students on their game because they know they're going to be randomly called at some point, so they need to be paying attention so that maybe they don't get embarrassed for not knowing the answer, which is something they shouldn't be embarrassed about, but they should be paying attention. So another one is a teaching strategy that I read about was Pepper, which is a technique used to encourage your students in the lesson. So they will rapidly just call out questions. It's very just fast, just what's 2 + 2, and someone answers, like Tim, answer the question, and it's very rapid and fast. It's kind of a little bit different than the wait time, but that's a fun way to kind of hype the class back up so it's not just quiet all the time. It's very nice to use both, I have found. But if a student doesn't get the answer right or doesn't answer as fast as you would like them to, it is important to move on, but to come back to that student so they can have a redemption. Another one that I really liked was not giving them an opt-out. So not accepting the answer, I don't know. Have them elaborate or have them make a guess, even if it is wrong. Let's see, let's go to my next favorite. So another one was no apologies. And that one was a little tricky because I had a lot of teachers in high school, especially, that would apologize for the lesson they were about to give. Like, oh, I'm sorry we have to learn this, but we have to because the state curriculum says we have to. And one thing that I did read is you do not need to apologize for your lesson. You do not need to apologize for the curriculum. Because if you do that, that automatically your class loses motivation to want to learn about that. So do not apologize for the lesson. Show that you're enthusiastic about the lesson so that it'll rub off on your students. Let's see, another one was strategy number 15. It's less talking and more listening. A great thing you could do, like add to your lesson plan and to incorporate in your classroom and in your teaching, is to let the students talk, whether that is directly to you as a class or having them turn to a peer and talk about what they're learning, or just do an open classroom discussion, because then you can go around and hear what your students are talking about, and you can get good information on what they're understanding, how they're gaining the concept, and what they're understanding, what they're getting to know. And you can that way redirect your lessons or enforce some other things. Another one I liked was At Bat. That was the name of it that I found. So, and the analogy was in softball or baseball, the way you get better at hitting is the more times you go up to bat. So it's basically just giving students more opportunities. So you can give as many opportunities as you can for your students to demonstrate the knowledge, whether that's having them write an essay, doing a project. It's a lot of differentiation in that method. And another one is to take a stand. This is another great teaching strategy to get your students engaged in a lesson. Have them voice an opinion, and it's very important to do this in a very non-toxic classroom environment where the students feel safe and there's no room for bullying in there, but have them have a stand, make an opinion. You can do a classroom debate, they can write an argumentative essay, they can just talk about it, but if through that they will gain a passion for what you are teaching. Now, I really like that one a lot. Another one I like that I see all the time, especially now that I'm substituting, are seat signals. It's a great way for students to ask you a question without interrupting the classroom flow. For example, fingers crossed, can I use the restroom? 2 fingers, can I sharpen my pencil? 3, can I get water? And a thumbs up, I need a tissue. And you can just nod your head without ever having to stop instruction, and you don't waste any valuable instructional time. Another one I liked that I'm seeing more and more, especially on social media, is the threshold teaching strategy, especially for younger kids. Meeting your students at the door and asking them how their day was or how their weekend was, how their games were. That way you can gauge how your students are coming into your classroom that day. So if they had a bad weekend, you can know what they need emotionally, what they need educationally, and they gain that great friendship and trust with you, and that's the type of classroom you want to have. Another one I liked is no warning. That kind of goes a little bit different from the threshold, where it's a very warm, inviting. But no warning is if you have a rule and someone breaks it, you don't give them a warning. You reprimand them. You do the punishment or the reinforcement, even if they're a really good kid, because you don't want a small problem to become a big problem. So if they understand the rules and they know the rules, like for example, they know not to get up out of their seat without asking and before you give them permission. And if they get up and do it, you have to do the correct punishment that you said that would happen, even if they're a really good kid. Although it seems really harsh, that's a really good thing to do in your classroom. And some of the last ones I'll highlight on here were the last 2. It was teaching strategy 30 and 31. The first one was emotional consistency. It is very important to never bring to the classroom your personal feeling or personal emotions. What happened at home stays at home, and what happens at work, you bring all of that into, you just keep work at work. And it's also really important with that to praise the class for their hard work and the efforts that they show, not about how that made you feel, because then that'll create a culture of they want to impress you rather than they want to do the best for themselves. And last but not least, my favorite teaching strategy of all was normalizing error. It is okay to get questions wrong. Never embarrass the student for getting it wrong, and instead teach them how to grow from that. Teach them how to learn from that so that they can use the same strategies on tests when they come across the same problem. And I'd left out a lot of things because, I had a lot of really good things in here, but that was some of my favorite parts of my interactive journal.